It's Song Talk Radio.
Welcome to Song Talk Radio, the show with songwriters talking to other songwriters about the craft of songwriting. We share tips, tools, and techniques, and together we all become better at writing songs. I'm your host, Neel Modi, and with me, my co-host, Phil Emery. How you doing, Phil?
Well, I'm doing pretty good considering I'm under attack.
Oh, no.
The island of Newfoundland has come under attack by these odd white blobs of goo that is washed up on shores, and they're not really sure what it is. It's
What?
actually quite bizarre. Yeah.
White blobs of what? Goo?
Yeah, just these sort of hardened white blobs of something. And it was in the New York Times. And yeah, they're not sure what it is. They're still trying to figure out if it melts. And, you know, hopefully it won't turn us into zombies. But I guess we're on an island, so if anyone's going to turn into zombies, it's probably the best to actually have people on an island.
At least everything will be contained, right?
Yeah. But, you know,
my goodness.
if we did get turned into zombies, these would be the, very friendly zombies, I think. So.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure. I thought you were going to say it wouldn't have been the first time.
Well, maybe. I don't know. I've only been here for a couple of years. I don't know what's going on.
Yeah, exactly. What happened in the
magical place.
Who knows? That's we'll have to put a link to that in the show post.
Yeah, it's really weird.
Curious to see what the outcome is.
The scientists have been looking at it for days yet now, and they haven't figured it out. So
that's so bizarre. Like no one knows what it is.
Yeah, they're not sure if maybe it's some latex paint that got poured over, spilled or something, or it could have been anything, or I don't know, it could be some kind of alien invasion.
Be anything.
You may have heard it here first. Who knows?
Yeah. Who knows? Maybe it's Kodos and Kang.
Upward, not sideward. Forward, not backward, and always spinning, spinning into the future.
That's right. Okay.
Back to the Simpsons was good.
Yes, okay. Please send your comments and questions and your weird shoreline, weird attacks, whatever you want to call them. Not really sure. To at Song Talk Radio on Facebook or Instagram, or feedback at songtalk.ca for the email, and we'll share your thoughts on the show. And please visit songtalk.ca to see the show post for this episode, to find links to resources we mention, and to download lyric and chord sheets to follow along with the songs we feature. Tonight, we're very happy to be getting into our songwriting challenge for 2024, which is to write a holiday song. And we're starting things off tonight with my submission to the challenge. Song that I wrote for a holiday song I've been working on for the last several weeks, I guess, is when I started it, really.
Yeah.
But before we get to mine, how is yours coming along, Phil?
Well, it was kind of stuck. And then, while listening to your track that you sent earlier on this week, it kind of inspired me.
Oh, nice.
In an interesting way. And it's not like my stuff is, just yours with like my voice on top of it, which maybe I might do because it'll save time.
Not good, eh?
But it inspired me completely differently, and something I'm trying to do nowadays is grab inspiration when it comes. I get ideas all the time. Ideas are not hard for me, but I don't capture them. And if you don't capture them, you try to regain them, and you sort of do, but they're never quite as good. So I wrote down a whole bunch of lyrics, and it's a very different song. But I don't know what it was about your song that inspired me so much. It's not the same lyrically or anything. It's just I don't know.
It just sent you in a direction, which is what inspiration is. Inspiration is never copying.
Yeah, so I've gotten quite far on it actually, and it's it's going to be kind of neat.
And as usual, is lyrics now the last piece of the puzzle for you, or?
Well, this started off kind of with the lyrics, with kind of a general sort of idea of the way to handle the tune. It's going to be kind of a sort of a statement and response kind of song.
Okay.
Yeah, it's. I wrote down a whole bunch of lyrics which I don't usually do.
Yeah, which is surprising for you, which is really cool. I'm looking
Yeah,
forward to
so
hearing that.
it's a very clear concept. It's
Hmm.
not a fuzzy lyrical idea like, oh, let's make Christmas nice or Christmas is sad or something. It's a
Hmm.
very definite concept, which really helps.
Yeah.
So yeah, but actually maybe completing this before the night before our next or in 2 weeks' time, which is when
Yeah. You
it's
got
my
you got another
turn.
yeah, you
So
got another 2 weeks to do yours. So
all hail the all hail the deadline.
the deadline, yeah. Deadlines are great. Like I said, I hunkered down last weekend and got quite a bit of it done last weekend because I knew that was my last chance really to really
Yeah.
just spend some hours on it and get it done. Because I always had some ideas about the orchestration, as you've heard it already, so you know the orchestration is pretty involved. Um,
It is actually, yeah.
yeah. So
Yeah, so
yeah,
what was the approach
yeah.
this
Well,
time for
before
you?
before we get to the approach, I just want to alert our listeners too that we're still collecting, and thank you, Steve, for sending in your song. We got yours,
Yes.
and yeah, and we're welcome to hear other songs from our listeners for this challenge. The deadline for the listeners to submit your songs is November the 18th. So you guys still have a month or so to submit your songs, and yeah, and then we'll do an episode or two on the listener songs,
And
which
again,
is
it doesn't
always
have
very
to be
fun.
perfect. It doesn't have to
Nope.
be fully produced. It can just be you and a piano or a guitar with on your phone.
Yeah.
That would be perfectly fine.
As long as the song is understandable and you give us a lyric sheet and stuff, then it's all good to go.
Even if it's not
So
finished.
yeah,
Even if
especially
it's
if it's
just
not
like, oh, I've got
finished.
a verse or a chorus and
Yeah. Yeah. It could just be a
yeah.
sketch of an idea. I mean, like I'm not convinced mine is done. I'm pretty
Mm.
happy with it right now, but I don't know. I may still make changes depending on what feedback you give me, Phil. And I'm also going to take it to the meetup this month,
Yeah.
and see what folks there think of it and stuff. Because it's really just been in my head this whole time, and I haven't talked to anybody about it or
Oh,
showed
right.
it or shared it with anybody so far. So this is really the
Now,
first.
part
So
of the challenge is you could write a song about any holiday, but
yeah.
you chose to do Christmas, which I am too. But did you think about doing any other holidays?
Well, so the thing for me lately is I find that in order for me to get started on a song the last few years, I have to have a concept first. I want to know
Mm.
what the idea is. So the idea I got was to was I wanted to explore a number of different holidays, all within the scope of one song, not just Christmas, but and of course, Wikipedia became my best friend in doing the research for this, right? Because you look up the list of multinational festivals, and they go through every month. So you look at sort of November, December. I didn't include anything about Satanism because they have a celebration as well, but
It's called Halloween.
yeah, it's called Halloween. But I picked on Saturnalia, which is the ancient Roman um, celebration that
Mm,
Christianity borrowed heavily from, allegedly,
indeed.
um, and a few ones that I learned about. Like I learned about Yalda, which is a Persian holiday. Kwanzaa, of course, is in there, but I didn't know anything about Kwanzaa, so I did a little bit of reading about Kwanzaa.
All right.
There are two other ones that are kind of Christmas inspired, but more secular. There's one called Human Light and one called Blue Christmas. And I think Blue Christmas is the one that sort of they deal with. They acknowledge the grief behind holiday times. If you just lost somebody this year and this is your first Christmas without that loved one or something like that, then it's an acknowledgement of those sorts of things. So what I wanted to do was sort of pull some images, especially things with colors and things like that of these different holidays, and sort of put together some keywords and stuff. But then that wasn't quite enough for me. I wanted some other thing to intersect it with conceptually. So then a few weeks later, I had the idea of, well, when it comes to Christmas trees, there are different species of Christmas trees. You can use Douglas firs, you can use spruce, you can use pine, you can use all these different kinds of trees that are used for Christmas trees. So in the same way that there are multitude of holidays, there are multitude of types of Christmas trees, and we can and that's the sort of metaphor that we live in this world that's incredibly diverse and incredibly, and it's all worth celebrating, and it's all wonderful, right?
Right.
So
Ah,
that's kind of the approach I took. And then when it got to doing, so I took those ideas and scratched down a lyric, and I've been revising the lyric as I've been going on, and I decided early on that the structure of this song was going to be pretty much 3 verses where I describe all these different holidays, and then in the very last section, which ostensibly is like a chorus, except it only happens once, so maybe it's just a coda. I'm not really sure. um, is where I bring together that idea with the metaphor with the trees, and sort of and it becomes this sort of ramp up escalation of energy at the end, where it just thing. I was subconsciously I was referencing, not even subconsciously because I'm talking about it now. There's a Peter Gabriel song that I always loved. It's called "I Grieve." I think it's off his the one after Us, Up, I think. I think it's and it's basically like verse with a little bit of a refrain and stuff like that, and then at the very last third of the song, it really builds up. The tempo doesn't change, but the energy of it just really expands at the end, and it's a really beautiful sort of curve and energy map of the whole thing. I've always loved that song. I've always wanted to do a song like that, where it's
that's
kind
a
of
great thing to do.
tension, 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 and then boom, right? It's a gigantic release at the end. So
Nice.
that's the kind of approach I took, and then when I got to writing it, actually wrote the very end part of it first. That was kind of the first lyric I wrote and the first musical part that I wrote, because I wanted that to be kind of pretty much major, happy, kind of, that sort of thing. But then when it got to the verses, I thought to myself, well, because I'm exploring all these different cultures and things, why not try to take a little bit of a note from our songwriting challenge from last year and introduce a mode? And I came up with this mode sort of on my own. Like I don't think it's an existing mode. It turns out it is, because everything's been
Yeah.
done.
Yeah. Of course.
Right. But at the time I was like, it's not. It starts minor and then it goes kind of major, and then it's kind of a blend of everything. And it sounds very Middle Eastern, Indian,
Hmm.
that sort of thing. And that's the kind of sound I was going for. Now, in the final song, I'm not sure it really sounds like that, like kind of Eastern, but in any
Yeah.
case, it's there. And maybe it's more subtle than that. And then the last piece of the puzzle was, okay, I can't just do 3 verses in succession, so I introduced musical interludes that were sort of a preview of what the final lyrical coda thing was going to be. There's sort of a short interludes that sort of put you in that mood, and then go back to a verse, and then interlude again, and probably verse, and then finally the last uh, explosion. So that's kind of it. That was kind of the idea, and again, like I've been going back and forth on the lyrics a lot, and really trying to paint the pictures, and and sort of. I also didn't want to lyrically. I didn't want to be like, this verse is about Christmas, this verse is about Kwanzaa, this verse is about the Yalta Persian one. Like I didn't want to do that. I
Right.
just wanted
Yeah.
to sort of intertwine things in a more tapestry kind of way. That there's a
Yeah.
little bit
You
of
didn't
this, a
want to
little bit
turn
of
it.
that.
You didn't want to turn it into like an educational song, and it's
Yeah.
time to celebrate Kwanzaa. And
Yeah, exactly.
yeah.
Exactly. So there's just bits and pieces of the various things kind of interspersed.
Cool. So you wrote the coda first, like musically or lyrically?
Uh Musically for sure. Music, that was the first part of the thing I tacked. I think I'm not sure if I wrote that lyrics first. I might have not written those lyrics first. I might have started with verses for ideas and things like that, and then did the tree bit at the end. But when it came to writing the music, I knew I wanted to start with the apex and then work my way back. For some reason, that just seemed like the natural way to do it. Like start with a big and chip away at it, right?
So the this is an E flat. Is it?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, the verses are in that weird mode. It's in B flat minor. It's a B flat minor mode. Um,
Oh, okay.
kind of. I mean, I discovered actually today, when I was looking it up, trying to think, because so I'll describe the scale that I came up with. It's B flat, C, D flat, which pretty much puts it in a minor mode. But then I go
Mm.
to E natural, F natural, G, A, and then back to B flat. And I can
Want to
just
play
play
it?
the scale on the piano here, so
Okay.
everyone can get a sense of what it sounds like. I think it does have a bit of that Eastern flavor to it.
It does.
Especially with that sharp four thing happening in there. So it's kind of a
so you didn't look this up. You just kind of played around on the piano and came up with that scale.
yeah. And then I didn't look it up until today, until I was like, okay, now we need to talk about this thing. let's put a label. Let's put a label on it. And I found out actually that that it is a classical Indian Madhuvanti scale, and it is
That is
used. And
cool.
yeah, and according to the wiki page, there's like a zillion Bollywood songs that use it, and
Yeah.
like it's all over the place. So it is pretty popular, I guess. But yeah, I
So you must
just
have been
sort of,
familiar with it then. You probably just didn't.
well, yeah, that's what I mean. Like, it probably was in my subconscious somewhere. Like, this sounds kind of
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
Let's go for it. But from a songwriting angle, I'm pretty well stuck in the Western mode. Like, that's what I do, right? Because that's the music that I learned. But
So you came up with the scale,
yeah,
and then you sort of put the chords underneath it. Like you figured out what the chords
yeah.
would be for the scale.
Yes. And the other thing too is that, so previous me, before last year's challenge, because last year's challenge, when we did the modal challenge, I challenged myself to pick a mode. I picked Mixolydian, and I stayed within Mixolydian for the entirety of the song. So for
Right.
these verses, I was very adamant that I came up with a scale, and those are the only notes I'm going to use in the melody, in the
Oh
chords. I'm
wow.
not gonna borrow from some other mode or something like that,
Right.
right? So I was very adamant about that, and if anything, when it came to developing my melody, it really it really zoned in on like those particular intervals, like the
Oh
like the
right.
like
Right.
the
Yeah.
flat three to the sharp four kind of thing, like those
Right.
sorts of intervals. I tried to incorporate those in the melody as much as I could,
Right.
um, to really pronounce that mode is taking place, and I didn't play around outside of that. Um,
Wow, that's great. It's a wonderful thing to put um, limitations and
mhm,
sort of rules on your song, especially when you're dealing with a challenge. Because a challenge response is different than a inspirational response. A challenge, you're trying to achieve something,
mhm.
and especially if you're running out of time, you have to give yourself some limitations to work within. You can still wind up doing great stuff, but having some limitations, even if they're artificial, is a very useful tool.
Yeah, yeah, fully agreed. And if anything, I felt kind of when I was developing my melodies. So the other thing, the last thing I wanted to do with this too was I've always wanted to write a song where the verses don't line up, or they're not similar melodically, rhythmically, number of syllables. Because I tend to be a very much a slave to that sort of thing. All my
Yeah,
verses kind of
yeah,
sound the same.
me too.
A while ago, I was obsessed with like really transform the third line of your verse with something completely different, melodically, chord wise, whatever, and then come back, sort of thing. But generally speaking, if I'm writing a song quickly, it'll be ba 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 da 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 da
Yeah.
and it's like very very symmetrical. So I wanted to write something that was outside of that, where the lines were different lengths. I stayed away from perfect rhymes for pretty much the whole
Mm,
thing, just to make it a little bit more flowy and a little bit more, um
mm.
I don't know what the opposite of that is. Like, it's not, I guess the other way of doing it is highly ordered. So this is introducing a little bit of disorder, but because the chords repeat and the rhythm of it
Yeah.
repeats, it that gives it order, but then the melodies kind of throw things a little bit out of that order.
Oh,
um
cool.
so it's a little bit of chaos within the order, I guess. I don't know.
Well, why don't we take a listen to it and then we'll talk some more?
Yeah, sounds good. Okay, and the title is Forest for the Trees.
Atop a pine, the guiding star forever. The greatest gift of all. The former gods in all their overturned celebrate and feast upon the best of days. Candles of blue, red, and gold. Human light as high as a soaring spruce. Witness the year's latest dawn. Dress it up in a rainbow kente. Offer up the harvest of the first fruits. Reap and prosper with your fellow men. Let's see the forest for the trees. Revel in diversity. Embrace the broader ecology. Breathe in the redolent
Nice. I really like the ending was really nice.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the ending bit, I did incorporate that the Christmas chord, which is on our resource page on the website.
I wanted to talk about, so what is the Christmas chord? Someone said it was like a D minor seventh of the flat five.
Well, it's the minor four. It's the minor four. So you're in a major key. It's the minor 4/6 chord. So if I'm
Okay.
if I'm in E flat, then the if I'm in E flat, normally your 4 chord would be A flat major, right? But you're going to go A flat minor, and you're going to add the 6. You're going to add the F to the A flat minor, and then I put the F on the bass as well, just for the heck of it. And then the trick to it is you have to resolve to the 1 after that. You can't dance around somewhere else. Well, you can, but it's no rule, obviously. But typically, it works.
Ah, okay. Because you had mentioned that when we were talking a couple of times about the Christmas chord, and I'd never heard about that. So I did some research, And people were saying all sorts of weird things. Like one was supposed to be like a D minor seventh with a flat five, and I was playing that and going, that does not sound Christmassy in any kind of way.
Well, that's the way I understood it before, because like most things in music theory, sometimes there's two ways of looking at the same thing, right?
That is true.
So in A flat minor 6, if you put the F on the bass, it could also be an F minor 6 with a flat 5.
Oh, okay, right.
Right? It's the same notes. It's the
Yeah.
same notes, but you would have the 6, what would be the 6 in the other version would be on the bass, right? So
Yeah, right.
it really depends on how you look at it. But I think the easiest way to think about the video we posted on that resource page for the challenge, that guy does express it as the minor 6, the 4 minor 6 chord.
Okay.
So it's the 4
That
minor.
makes a lot more sense to
Consider
me, yeah.
it's as just the 4 minor in a major
Right.
key. So if you're in C, it's going to be an F minor, and you're just going to add a 6 to it. So just add the D.
Oh, okay.
You know what I mean? And but again, the key thing, in my opinion, is to take, like, once you go to that chord, you got to go back to the
one.
in order
right.
to give it that Christmas flavor. And even before that, I did the dominant 7, or the dominant 7 chord. So right, so you're on the 5 chord,
right?
The dominant 7 version of it, and then to that 4 minor 6 chord, and then to the 1.
Oh, okay.
Right, so at B flat 7, A flat minor 6 over F, E flat.
Oh, okay, that makes a lot more sense.
That gives me the whole thing.
Right.
Because I do think that's kind of a beautiful progression. Like, it just kind of lands you in a really nice place.
Because I was trying to use that in when I was developing my song, and it didn't sound like anything that would like, it didn't sound Christmassy to me, and I just thought, what? But this makes a lot more sense. The 4/6 to 1.
Yeah.
So I do have a couple of thoughts on the lyrics, which I'm not a big lyric. So you have a couple of words which I don't think sing well and are too weird.
Okay.
One is redolence.
Yeah.
I don't really know what redolence
I just learned
is.
that word. What's that?
What does it mean?
Redolence. I didn't know this word before. It's a new word to me. So redolence is a combination. If you have a combination of scents of smells in the air.
Oh, okay.
So the classic example of redolence is in a forest. After it rains, you got all the different species of things and plants and trees, and you're smelling it all at once. It's the whole combination, the whole tapestry of scents is a redolence.
Oh, okay, that's all right. So, but so I think that's like, I would put a different word there because I think it's too obscure, and people are just kind of like, what? Especially the last line. Like, maybe the last line should be a bit more pure. I had some other thoughts. In some of your lines, like the word "the" can be a very awkward word in the middle of a line. It works very well at the beginning of a line. The want you know, the be da da, the. It's just like, because the is got a weird kind of mouth feel. So if you could, I thought you could replace some of the thes with a, like atop a pine, a guiding star forever. It kind of fits a bit better actually in your rhyme scheme. You have the former gods and all their overturned revelry. I thought instead of former, maybe forgotten. In fact, you could just even take out the just go forgotten gods in their overturned revelry,
Oh, yeah.
Getting rid of some of those useless sort of padding words. And you have celebrate and feast. You could do celebrate a feast upon the best of days. So taking like those ands and those that's and maybe sharpening them up a bit.
Okay, yeah.
And the same thing with witness the year's latest dawn. Witness a year's latest dawn is sort of a bit more present, I think. And on verse 3, you have offer up the harvest of the first fruits. You do offer up the harvests of our first fruits.
Oh yeah. R would work better. Yeah.
Yeah, because it's a like the is
Yeah, you're right.
it
I
works
never really
well,
thought of
but
that.
it is kind of awkward. And on your interlude, like your interlude is really nice, but you have a melodic form over your E flat and your A flat, and then you go back to the E flat.
Yeah.
I think you should repeat that phrase
Oh, okay.
because the first phrase is really nice, and I think you could put the first phrase over the next two chords, and it would be kind of interesting.
It would probably work. Yeah.
Yeah, and it also it sort of ties it up because the verses are very, as you say, flowing, and
Yeah.
whereas so your interlude almost needs to be a little bit more sort of tighter and almost sing-songy to act as a contrast in your verses.
Yeah. No, that's good. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, just really, really highly ordered.
Yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
yeah, that's really
Those are
cool.
really good, really good suggestions, Phil. Yeah, I didn't really think about the word "the." I'm just like the. It's a normal word. Like when to put it in. I guess there's a
Yeah,
difference between lyrics and prose. Like I was
yeah,
trying to take. I was taking a little bit of a prose approach to this.
yeah. And it feels, which is nice actually. Like
Yeah.
it's not so you went there and I went there and I went there and I went there.
Yeah.
That kind of. And it's nice to have something that's more free flowing. And I
Mhm.
remember the first time I heard this, I thought this is kind of almost more. This could be like a theater, like a piece in a theater,
Yeah.
like in a musical.
Yeah.
It's because there's also this sense of movement, but maybe that's the orchestration that does it for me.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and it was weird when I didn't intend this, but like usually in songs, I go for syncopations, a lot of syncopations, right?
Yeah,
And this, when I started writing it, it just naturally fell into a ba-da-dum, 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 ba-da-dum. Like,
yeah,
and that was the groove of it. So I'm like, I just decided to embrace it. I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to fight it.
yeah,
That's what the song naturally wants to be. And so there's a lot of this. I mean, when I originally wrote the melodies, there were a lot of half notes and quarter notes, and I had to go back and actually take that, like, especially on those prepositions like the ofs and the
yeah.
thes and things like that, and make them shorter and make the nouns and verbs longer. You know what I mean? So I
Right.
introduced some modicum of eighth notes at least in the melody, because the rest of the orchestration is very rigid quarter notes, like
Yeah, yeah.
not a lot of syncopation, but that's okay. Like at least it's unified and it speaks that one kind of language, right?
I really like I thought the orchestration was really like it sounded like professional. Like
Totally.
it's easy with VSTs. You have stuff and just kind of it sounds okay, but it just sounds like someone banging on a VST. You have lots of counter melodies and
Mm.
like it sounded like it was something that was really composed, as
Oh, thank you.
opposed to just throwing a bunch of stuff on into a DAW.
Yeah, and I kind of felt a little bit like that when I was just layering stuff on top of other stuff on top of other stuff. So I had and there's many tracks, and there's strings and brass, and there's two percussion
yeah.
tracks, and there's two choirs. And oh my goodness.
So
And then the solo violin thing, which is nice.
yeah.
But, yeah.
No, the only other thought about the orchestration is that there's not a lot of sort of development of the orchestration.
Mm.
It seems very similar between them, so it might be nice to start off sparser and then kind of build it up.
Yeah, and
Or
I
do
had
the
thought of that as
opposite
well.
and then
Yeah. Yeah. It was really hard to because I knew I needed at any given point, I did in the verses especially, I needed the bum ba da dum ba da dum ba da dum
yeah.
in order to ground those melodies, because otherwise the melodies were just going to float off into some
Oh, that is true, isn't
weird
it?
thing. So I
Yeah.
needed some kind of rhythm. But yeah, I thought in the subsequent verses to sort of amp up the bum ba da dum thing and make it a little bit thicker. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know, because I do need something like that. And as it is, I had the cellos doing it, I had the shaker doing it, and I had the lighter percussion stuff. They're all doing bum ba da dum ba da dum ba da dum, and I needed
You're
that
right,
much
yeah.
of it in order to make it even what it is.
Yeah. I mean, it's a tough thing. It's something I've never really worked on myself. I mean, I've done music for like short films and things, but it's always been more kind of electronic. So it's been a very different approach as opposed to a symphonic approach. Mainly because
Yeah,
at the time
yeah.
I didn't have access to the tools we have in here, but I don't really have those kinds of skills.
Yeah, and of course I found every time I do any orchestration stuff, especially with singing on top of it. And by the way, this is one of those vSynth AI driven virtual singers, Solaria, featuring Solaria. And I always find with the orchestrations, there's always a bottom end missing compared to like rock music or whatever.
Yes.
So I did end up loading up a subtractive synthesizer and just put like a raunchy bass. just to fill up that bottom end, right?
Yeah.
I always end up doing that.
It's a fun thing, though. I think it's great. It's like actually, my song is very kind of poppy. You know, it's piano and drums basically, and it's got that kind of feel. I must admit, I never thought about doing an orchestration thing, mainly because I think doing a Christmas song that I'm not necessarily inspired about, although I am more now, on top of doing orchestration, of which I know very little about, that would be a lot to sort of squeeze in with the rest of my life. It would be good, but it would just be, I think, too much for me to do it and actually have something to show when it's my turn. So
it is quite a bit more work, for sure. And that's part of the way all these voices kind of sound the same. Like the other day, I think the night before I sent it to you, I was like, I need to do something. So I put in some solo violin stuff on the verses just to give it a little bit of difference. But otherwise, like the cellos and stuff, all that stuff is just copy paste because I didn't have a lot of time. So I'm like, I'm just gonna bring it over, and that's gonna be it.
But you used to do more kind of orchestral kinds of things. When I first met you, you were very
I've done this in the past. It's just not new to me.
Yeah.
It's not new to me. I've done band orchestrals and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
I've always done it with virtual instruments. Like it's always been cool. I've never taken a score to a real orchestra and said, "Here, play this."
That would be interesting. That would. I think you'd actually have to know what you're doing as opposed to doing my rock and roll way of doing stuff, which is just making it up as you go along.
Yeah, it's always that.
Well, that's great. So what did you learn from this experience, do you think?
Well, I think I don't know if I learned anything per se, but it kind of reinforced this idea. And I think this is the idea with every challenge, especially the ones we've done on our podcast, because we've had months to contemplate them, that the earlier you start, it is better. Right?
Yeah.
That these things can take some development. Like I've been tweaking lyrics until the last day before I send this to you, right? And the things you point out are perfectly valid, and I can revisit those things. And yeah, I was so impressed by the word redolent. So I was like, yeah, that's a cool word. I'm gonna use that. no one's gonna know what it means.
Well, probably will be like some English majors. I'm sure he'll go, wow, that's really cool.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's strictly for the English majors, right? But but these things, like in other words, and I guess it gets reinforced for me too that any idea you have, if you take the time and really work it and try and shape it, and I'm happy that I gave myself enough time to make the musical approach too that I envisioned for this thing, right? Because I thought of it as this kind of verse coda structure. Like it's a pretty unconventional structure, I think, right? There's no chorus per se. There's a thing at the end, but I don't know, is that a chorus? I don't repeat it.
That's true, actually.
It's one of the things of a chorus. I mean, on the lyric sheet, I just call it a coda. I don't know what it is. But like I envisioned that, and I envisioned the orchestrations and that kind of melodic approach. So, that sort of stuff. Like you need to give yourself the amount of time to do that. So even though I had, I'd written a draft of the lyrics, I was ready to jump on the music, and I did that. It was kind of an iterative process, because then I was after I programmed the AI singer, I'm like, yeah, that part didn't sing so well actually, and there was one idea in there that I wanted to change, like the day of kind of thing that I sent it to you on Tuesday or whatever, and I'm like, oh man, I want to change that. So and that's the nice thing about the AI singer, you can just go in and change.
Oh yeah.
Boom, it's done. and so I think this idea of development, is just been really highly reinforced for me, that you can get to a certain point, you can get to a pretty successful point, I think, just by working it and working it and working it.
And you did, sir. I think you should
Yeah.
be very proud of
Yeah, thank you.
this tune. Congratulations on completing it.
Oh, thank you.
Being the first one of the 2024 Song Talk Radio Songwriting Challenge.
Yeah.
So you won. I guess you won.
I'm the only competitor so far, so yeah, I won. Got no competition.
That's actually not true. We will actually have a bunch of songs from our listeners, so that's not totally true.
And I'm sure they're going to be fantastic as well. And like we said, like this is not to say that everyone's has to be as highly produced. I mean, because I work everything virtually and in my DAW, and everything's essentially electronic, no matter what I do, it sounds highly produced.
That is true, actually.
I can do a sketch and it'll sound like it's perfect, but even though I may not be happy with the song, so it's just that's just a question of the tools I'm using. Everything kind of sounds optically, sonically perfect out of the box.
Yeah, that's true.
Right? Nothing's out of tune and nothing's out of whatever, that sort of thing. So it's all good, no matter what our listeners do. This was a really interesting, enjoyable challenge, and I've been writing holiday songs for the last few years, and last year I wrote a holiday song at very much the last minute. I wasn't going to.
Oh, that's right.
And at the very end of it, I came up with something very similar to this. Actually, it was 3 verses. It was just 3 verses. There was no B part.
Right.
And I put the same singer on it and everything, and it was just a very quickie little sketch and had minimal or orchestration and stuff like that. So in some ways, this challenge is kind of a follow-up to my song from last year, because last year's holiday song that I wrote kind of was about a similar idea. It wasn't quite this researched, but it was a similar idea. That one, I think it only ended up on my YouTube. This is
always a great thing to do.
I think so. I mean, and I'm saying these challenges because I've also done the challenges over the year at Chad Shank's at home songwriting group.
Right.
And one of those was a 1-day challenge. Most of them are like a month long, and you really have to whip off something fast.
Which is probably the best way, because that way you don't get too much in your brain,
Yeah. And those ones, I'll be honest, tend to be a little more poppy. Quite a bit more poppy. For something like this, it would have to take me a little while, a little more considerate and all about things. But yeah,
it's true. Well, congratulations again. Yeah, a very fine piece of music.
Thank you so much. Alrighty, I think I am here in the band.
Indeed.
And that is all the time we have on the show. So special thanks to us for holding the songwriting challenge and getting it underway.
Thank you, Neel.
Thank you, Phil. And we want to hear from you too. So please send your comments on Facebook or Instagram to @SongTalkRadio, or send us an email, feedback@songtalk.ca. And once again, folks, you can submit your holiday song submissions to us at feedback@songtalk.ca. Just shoot us an email, attach an MP3, a lyric sheet, and a short paragraph or two about your songwriting process behind it. We'll read about your process on the air and share your song and talk about it a little bit on the episode where we do our listener songs. So be sure to send your songs in to us by November the 18th, again. And be sure to check out our YouTube channel for live performance videos and full episodes, and subscribe today to the Song Talk Radio podcast on your favorite podcast provider. You can find links to all the products, books, and web services we mentioned on the show on our resources page. And please join us at our next monthly Song Talk meetup. If you're in Toronto for in-person meetups, or anywhere in the world for our online meetups, it's free to join and free to attend. Bring a song, a lyric sheet, and get constructive feedback from other songwriters. Stop by songtalk.ca for the link. You can follow me at neilmodi.com. You can follow Phil
at philemery.ca.
And be sure to stop by the website, songtalk.ca, to browse past shows and find out how you can be a guest. Thanks for tuning in, and keep on writing.
Also, subscribe.
And subscribe.
That would be good. Yeah, if you're on YouTube. We're on YouTube, it'll do that. So
YouTube
it'll be
podcast.
good. Good night. Yeah, it's a neat tune, man.
Cool. Thank you, sir. Yeah, I'll share it at the meetup this weekend and see what everyone else thinks too.
I always kind of want to do these orchestral things, but it's just kind of don't know where to start. Like I kind of don't really know where to start with it.
I started with piano.
Oh, okay.
I had piano and I had a melody, and that was it. Right, just to map out the chords, and then after that, I just sort of. There's also a synth pad in there just to.
Yeah. Okay.
But yeah.
You remember that course that what's his name took?
Jeff Greenway.
Film? Yeah, Jeff Greenway.
Yeah, he did the film composing work.
Have you ever thought about taking that? Because it seems right up your alley.
Yeah, it may very well be. I'd probably learn a ton in there about real orchestration and stuff like that. But
well, you kind of do that naturally. So
I do. I think I have a bit of a thing for it. Anyways, I've listened to enough of that stuff and kind of dissected it enough. And even in high school, I used to borrow band scores from school.
Oh wow!
And do them. I made a piano string arrangement on just to play on my keyboard of Air for the G string, and I based it on the band arrangement that we played in band.
Cool.
Right? Which I always cite that as like one of my favorite band pieces because there's no percussion in it. I was the percussionist or one of the percussionists in band, and I remember just like sitting down on the floor, leaning up against one of the timpani drums, and just listening to the band play it when we did this piece.
Nice.
Because it's just Air for the G string is hands down the most beautiful piece of music I've ever heard in my life.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
And it was just wonderful just to sit there and listen. This is great.
That's great.
Yeah. But I've always even for my independent study in grade 13, I said to the music director, like, I want to write a piece for band and perform it at a spring show. I never finished it. Like halfway through the school year, I had a bit of the score done, and I brought in copies for all the different instruments, and so everyone had like 3 notes. I had a big sort of chordal thing at the end of the intro, and bum 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 kind of thing, right? Yeah. These big, massive, huge chords, and so everyone had 3 notes to play. And I just wanted to get a sense: do I have like, frequencies lined up? Is it too much heavy on the low end? Does the spread nice?
Right.
Kind of thing. And everyone played these 3 notes, and I was just like, my mind was just blown. I'm like, this sounds awesome. Like I'm totally on the right track. This is amazing. It's gonna sound so good when I finish it. Never did finish it. Never did perform it at the spring concert.
Well,
I still have the sheet music somewhere.
Well, it's a big act. That's a lot to do.
It is, and of course I was 17 years old. And I was like, this, but it took way longer than I thought it would.
Yeah. Well, because also you don't know what you're doing.
Yeah, I
it's
know
not like
what I was doing.
You knew what so it's not like you knew what you were doing and you had to do it. You had to learn how to do it and do it, which takes a while.
Yeah. I was literally making it up. I was composing it and arranging it for the whole band all at the same time. And I'm like, I don't know what the next section is going to be. I was kind of inspired by the planets, Gustav Holst, the planets.
Oh, right.
Because like every 30 seconds was a different thing.
That's true.
It just kept on changing.
Not a lot of repetition there.
No, there was a reprisal of something later on.
But
I don't know. I have to look it up again. But it's funny.
All right, you have a great week. Maybe I'll see you on Saturday.
Yeah, I'll see you on Saturday afternoon.
Okay.
Cool, man. Have a good one. Cheers. Bye.